So we have some new reporting about what documents potentially Trump was holding on to. And, I kind of want to warn everybody that there's a lot of reports. It's hard to know exactly what's going on here. It's going to take a while if we ever figure out exactly what documents and why they went in and all of these things. But I thought this was interesting enough to bring it to you. So let's go ahead and put this Newsweek report up on the screen. According to this reporter, he says that the FBI sought documents from Trump that he hoarded for years, including about Russiagate. And I'll read you a little bit of this story and then we can break it down for you. So they say, according to this report, the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago last Monday was specifically intended to recover Trump's personal stash of hidden documents, two high-level U.S. intel officials tell Newsweek. To justify the unprecedented raid on a former president's residence and protect the source who revealed the existence of this private hoard of documents, agents went into Trump's residence on the pretext that they were seeking all government documents, says one official who's been involved in the investigation. But the true target was this private stash, which Justice Department officials feared Donald Trump might weaponize. And in particular, one former Trump official tells them that he was particularly interested in matters related to the Russia hoax and the wrongdoings of the deep state. This is someone allied with Trump. And they say, I think he felt, and I agree, that these are facts that the American people need to know. So effectively what they're trying to say here is that, the government said, we're going in to get all of these documents that the National Archives has been after, that you haven't turned all of them over, that, some of which continue to have classified markings and may in fact continue to be highly classified. But the thing they were really worried about were this private stash of documents, which had mostly to do with Russiagate and his own theories of we were spied on and that he sees as vindicating, and they felt like he may use these, which, again, technically he's not supposed to be holding on to. He may weaponize them in some fashion. He may use them during his campaign. So there was, honestly, when you look at those motivations, it's hard to come away with any other conclusion that there were a lot of political considerations here.
Yeah.
Now, again, a lot of this is single sourced. Some of it is two sources. So take it for what it's worth. But I did think that this was a kind of interesting new detail and wrinkle to what we know about this search.
The one that stuck out to me was this quote. The two U.S. officials with direct knowledge say that some of the intel might have dealt with nukes, but that was not the main focus. Trump kept documents that interested him. Sometimes Iranian or North Korean, sometimes Ukraine or Russia, some foreign leaders. It wasn't subject matter per se that was of interest to the Justice Department. It was fear that Trump might, quote, weaponize the information, including for personal gain. Trump was particularly interested in matters related to the Russia hoax and the wrongdoings of the deep state. So it actually makes a hell of a lot of sense that he would hang on to any of these so-called classified documents.
Yeah, he's obsessed with this.
Is obsessed with Russiagate that he would think would exonerate him, but may, whatever in terms of that. And first of all, the intelligence community, the CIA, what I remember a lot of the initial Russiagate reporting where they were Putin directly ordered U.S. election interference was based on some Kremlin source, and they started actually getting worried in the press that they were leaking so much information from the CIA that it might have given away the identity. So it would make sense that that might exist in the Trump archives. I can tell you from personal experience, I've interviewed the guy. He is obsessed with North Korea, obsessed with his interview with, or his meeting with Kim Jong-un. And it would also make sense that, Kim Jong-un and the North Korean nuclear program. And when I say obsessed, I genuinely mean it. Brought up unprompted.
What do you attribute that to?
I have no idea. I think probably the novelty of it. Look, it's pretty crazy, right? He's the first U.S. president to meet a North Korean leader ever.
So
we forget how
it's an
landmark.
Ego thing.
I think it's a landmark thing. From a fascination perspective, to meet somebody the most reclusive leader on planet Earth from the hermit regime. It's kind of interesting. Also, they did create a nuclear weapon basically from nothing and sacrificed so much of their world GDP in order to do so. So actually the blueprints for how the North Koreans made their nukes is the real nightmare scenario, because that is how any bootstrap nation on Earth could do so. So intel around how exactly all of that worked, that's kind of interesting. So Iranians, of course, he's obsessed with his strike on Qasem Soleimani and appearing strong. So it would make sense that he also had documents on that. This fits so much more with the Trump that I knew and covered and interviewed several times, which is just narcissism and a genuine obsession with proving himself correct and then just wanting to hang on the documents for the sake of it in order to prove it to anybody that he wanted to.
There was a weird incident. You probably remember more of the details of this because you're more plugged into that world than I was. But there was all this like wrangling over making these documents unclassified at the time. And there was at some point, this is back when Trump had a Twitter account and not just a stupid truth account, he tweeted like, I hereby declassify all of the Russiagate documents. So of course, reporters were immediately like, all right,
so excited.
Let's FOIA them. Let's get after it. Let's see what this says. And his administration, led by Mark Meadows, actually successfully argued in court that no, the fact that he tweeted this doesn't actually make it so, which is also an interesting wrinkle in terms of, their argument that if he even declassifies something in his mind, then it's totally declassified, because what they argued during his administration was, no, just the tweet isn't enough. We got to go through the formal process, and we haven't done that. And they won in court on that question. So there has long been a deep interest and a lot of drama around whatever this like stash of Russiagate documents ultimately is that he feels is, should be exonerating to him, and, maybe has some of the details about the wilder out there theories of them that like the Obama administration was directly spying on him that went sort of above and beyond what even the actual facts of Russiagate ultimately were. This is what I would just view this as one potential theory of the case, given that this is the only reporter that has sort of gotten any information about this. But it is interesting, and it might dovetail with like the reporting that they went in his private safe, and it would make sense that they go into the storage room where all the random documents that the National Archives are interested in, they grab that as almost like pretextual, but what they're really after is this stash of whatever was in his private safe that they went in and retrieved also. So I don't know. Putting it out there, keep it in mind. One potential theory. We'll see ultimately if anything comes of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And that case you're referring to actually does bear a little bit more explanation. The New York Times tried to sue the U.S. government for FOIAing those documents. And they won that case in a court where the judge agreed that simply saying documents are declassified is not enough to go through the process. That is going to forego a lot of his defense in the future in the court, given that his own administration successfully argued that.
They argued in court, no, just him saying it, that's not how it works. Now they want to say, not only does he doesn't even have to say it. If he just thinks it in his mind, if it just happens to be brought home with him as people bring their work home, that's enough to declassify it, when during their administration they had the polar opposite stance in court. So that is interesting. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.